The first time I realized I was an adult was when I was 23. I was in the grocery store when a kid asked me to get some sugar-blasted excuse for a breakfast off the top shelf. I pulled the box off the shelf and stared at the cartoons gorging themselves on the luminescent emoticon-shaped diabetes pebbles. He took the box and said, "Thanks, mister." Hearing that almost made me feel dirty. Now, at 27, I know I must be an adult because I'm tired all the time. I go to bed tired, I wake up tired, and in that brief blur of confused social awkwardness in between, I'm spending that daydreaming about actual dreaming back in bed. I went to a doctor to see if he could prescribe me something, since apparently self-medicating on Adderall like I did in college is discouraged, and anyway, I couldn't find a dealer. No, I wasn't depressed. Yes, I was getting at least 8 hours a night. No, I didn't have congenital heart failure or explosive herpes. So, why didn't I ever have any energy? The doctor said I might have sleep apnea, a condition which obstructs my breathing while sleeping and causes me to wake up multiple times in the night. I didn't remember waking up, but he said that was common. He wanted me to spend the night in a sleep lab and get a nocturnal polysomnography, which measures my heart rate and oxygen levels for detection. Screw that! I may be an adult, but I'm not old. It was hard enough getting everything done while being tired. The last thing I wanted was trying to get some rest in a lab. I opted instead to just leave an audio recorder on overnight. Apparently, the periods of obstructed breathing would audibly contrast with the heavy breathing, which compensated afterwards, thus potentially allowing me to detect the issue. No downside, right? I used an Android app, which is a sound-activated audio recorder. I messed around with the calibrations a bit and finally reached a sensitivity which detected heavy breathing. Giggling. Like a little girl. That's what I heard when I played back the audio. I could faintly hear myself breathing in the background. There were 3 distinct instances during the night where I heard it. I was getting more tired every day though, and this still seemed like an easier solution than going into the lab. Obviously, this was a joke from the app developers. There weren't many reviews on this one, so I downloaded a new recorder and tried again the following night.
Isn't he a precious thing? You're like the poor baby. Just his back? Their backs aren't very sensitive. Let him sleep. He isn't ripe yet.
That's what played back to me the following morning. I don't know what's going on, but I've never felt less like an adult than I do now. It's times like this when I really wish I wasn't single. I had a mini panic attack and almost smashed my phone on the nightstand right there. Tonight, I'm going to try video recording too. I hope I'll still be able to sleep tonight.
Let him sleep. He isn't ripe yet.
Do you have any idea how hard it is to get a good night's rest after hearing that in your room? I've never been one to freak out about superstitious or supernatural things. When I see a black cat crossing my path, I just figure he has someplace to be. Sure, I've read scary stories for their thriller aspects, and I'll watch horror movies with friends just so I can laugh at them for being scared, but I never personally bought into that kind of stuff.
You're like the poor baby.
After playing the tape for what felt like the 100th time, I was ready to expand my boundaries of reality just to find some explanation. Even deciding that it was a ghost or some nonsensical shit was better than having no explanation at all. Calling my friends or family, though, I would be ruining decades of my carefully maintained image of the chill guy who doesn't let anything bother him. I was resolved to give it one more night with the video recorder to see if I couldn't catch the trickster before asking for help and embarrassing myself. I tossed and turned for hours last night. I got up about a dozen times to check my laptop to make sure the video was still recording. Just to be safe, I saved the video stream to a password-protected Google Drive folder so it was stored on the cloud. Even if someone tampered with my computer in the night, I should still be able to see what was going on. I watched the slow minutes drain through my digital clock as though they resented their obligation to pass the time. I don't even remember falling asleep, but one moment I read the time as 2 a.m., and the next moment it was 3:30. I must have slipped out for at least a little while. The red recording light was off. I immediately jumped up and checked my laptop, but the video file was gone from my computer. The backup stream on the Google Drive was still there though, so I scrubbed through the video. Me on my back. Me on my side. Oh look, there's me upside down with my feet on the pillow. And then a face was peering into the screen. A little girl, couldn't have been more than 14, was in front of the camera. It was difficult to tell much about her though, because her skin was charred black and flaked off all the way to her heat-splintered skull. Her hair and nose were completely burned away, and all that was left of her eyes and mouth were sticky pits of darkness. I skipped back to the moment she appeared and played the video. She rose up from below the camera angle as though she was lying on the floor. She turned her head towards my sleeping body, then to the computer.
What's he looking for? He's looking for us. Shut it off. Can't we just tell him what's happening? He deserves to know. Jessica, we agreed about this. It's either you or him. Get rid of it. Now!
That's where the video stopped. The timestamp read 3:21 a.m. They were here just a few minutes before I woke up. I checked my window, locked. The door, locked from the inside. I even opened the closet and every cupboard in the small apartment kitchen. There wasn't any sign. In about 5 minutes, I had returned to my computer to watch the video again for clues. I'd left the Google Drive folder open though, and the backup video file was now gone too. They were still in my room somewhere. Unless I was just going crazy and had woken up from a nightmare, but I don't think so. Even with the video gone, my floor was still littered with the black crumpled flakes of burned skin.
It's either you or him.
I didn't like the sound of that. I couldn't stay in the apartment knowing that they were here. But where could I go at 4 in the morning? I called the number for the sleep lab my doctor gave me. There was a staff still on duty, but they said they were all booked up through next week. I grabbed my jacket and keys and headed out the door. As long as I stayed still, I was in too much danger of falling asleep again. I didn't have any real plan, but I figured I would just walk around until the sun rose. I was more exhausted than ever after that restless night. I still couldn't quite accept that was happening to me. Maybe I was just so tired that my mind had started playing tricks on me. It was hard to be afraid while walking around the familiar park near my home. Vivacious bursts of spring decorated the ground, and I gulped down deep breaths of the fresh air. I could just call in sick today, get a good long sleep, and maybe all of this would just go away. Hey, buddy! I nearly jumped out of my skin. It was just some homeless guy sleeping on a park bench. I pulled my jacket up and started walking faster. Hey, don't be like that! Got any change? Sorry, nothing to spare. Yeah, right, bastard. Unpleasant, but it's a common enough encounter in the city. It was what he said next that made my blood run cold. I hope the lady burns you next, like she did to that girl. I slowly turned to face him. But he was just a crazy hobo who would rant about anything. This couldn't have anything to do with... But the image of that burned skin was not so easily banished from my mind. What girl? He grinned to have my attention. I could clearly count all 5 of his yellow teeth peeking through his tangled mass of facial hair. Jessica. I could hear the lady screaming her name the whole time the girl was burning alive. I hope she gets you too. The words kept playing a loop in my mind while I walked. I was getting hung up on the word ripe. The connotations implied I was getting ready to be harvested for food, but what entity would possibly choose me? I've never built on ancient Indian burial grounds or disrespected a primordial altar. I did once find out some guy's gamertag password in high school and stole his characters, but I hardly think that's grounds for being tormented like this. There was absolutely nothing about my life which suggested I should be the target for this madness. $10 was enough to get the homeless man talking. He said he gets thrown out of the park if he sleeps here too often, so he's also set up a camp a little outside town in an aspen grove. The last time he was there, about 3 days ago, he witnessed a young girl being burned alive while an older woman watched. Of course, he didn't actually say it in those words. His version had a lot more colorful phrases like, "I'd sooner eat my shit and eat the next shit afterward than go through that," or "She was screaming like a dozen cats getting raped by a tiger." I passed the last gas station in town, and he said the Aspens were only about a 10-minute walk from here. I've never been so tired in my life. This had to be more than sleep deprivation. It was a mortal weariness, a spiritual weariness, almost as though the bond tying me to this world was starting to unravel. I kicked a rock in my way, and I half expected my foot to pass straight through it. My best guess is that the lady is some kind of demon, and she sacrificed the girl and now she's going after me. But the older voice in the recording had said, "Jessica, we agreed on this. It's either you or him." How could Jessica have agreed to go through that? Was she tricked? What could she possibly stand to gain? I knew something was wrong the second I stepped into the aspen grove. The cool morning breeze died the moment I passed the first trunk. The green leaves hung frozen and unnaturally static. The only thing that seemed to be moving was a steady stream of sap which poured down the trees. Not sap. Blood. I could tell by the dark red streaks left behind on the white bark as it oozed toward the ground. I considered turning back right there, but the more unnatural it seemed, the more important it was for me to stop whatever was happening to me. There was a clearing in the center of the grove where a circle of salt was laying upon the earth. Sitting in the center of the circle was a middle-aged woman who I can only presume was the lady. Her face was plain and warm, although heavy lines of grief pulled her eyes downward. She wore jeans and a simple floral sweater. Not exactly how I would have imagined a witch or demon. Her eyes were closed, hands folded calmly in her lap as though she were waiting for someone. For who? For me? You're the lady. The moment I said it, I realized the homeless guy probably just called her that because he didn't know her name. You're the one who burned Jessica alive. She opened her eyes wide, comforting, soulful eyes. Eyes I would have trusted under any other circumstance.
You weren't supposed to find out until the end. I'm sorry you became involved in this.
Until the end? You mean when I was ripe? What was going to happen then? I wanted to hit her, to throw a stone, to yell, anything. But seeing her so calm and ordinary and sad, I couldn't even raise my voice. The little energy I had left was filled with indignation and anger, and without that, it was all I could do just to keep standing.
I told you, Mother. He deserves to know what's going on.
My skin prickled. Jessica was sitting outside the ring of salt, or at least what was left of her. The whole body was as black and rough as charcoal. All of her clothes had burned away, and the skin had burst in many places to reveal flayed sinew and cooked bone underneath. You burned your own daughter alive! I felt the rage building again, and I didn't fight it. I had to hold on to it. This feeling was all that reminded me I was still awake, still alive.
You're right, Jessica. I've been so selfish.
The woman sighed, and seeing her in such dismal misery, my anger was once more replaced by profound pity. That's when she explained everything to me. She wasn't a witch at all, only a mother who couldn't bear to watch her daughter suffer. Jessica was born with cerebral palsy, an incurable disorder which devastated her mind and body. She could barely swallow on her own, and her mother had done everything within the boundaries of medical science only to find that was not enough. After that, she tried alternative medicines, crystals, powders, ointments, prayers, and finally, at the end of all things, rituals. Her pursuit of the arcane led her subtly down the road of the occult until she discovered a process known to cure someone of all mortal ailments. In this vain hope, she burned Jessica alive in order for her to return purified.
The entity I made the pact with was willing and eager up until I lit the fire in her flesh. But afterwards, he began to make demands before he would bring her back.
At the demon's request, for that is what she found herself bound to, she planted 7 black seeds in the food where she worked as a grocer. Only once the seeds had ripened within their victims would Jessica be allowed to return. By the end of her tale, the last of my strength had fled me, and I was sitting beside her in the salt circle while Jessica watched from the outside.
"I'm sorry,"
she mumbled, no longer able to meet my gaze.
"I had already burned her. I couldn't stop before I..."
"What happens when we're ripe?" I asked. My throat was choked and dry. I couldn't help but glance back at Jessica's grotesque disfiguration. Was that what was in store for me too?
"The seeds are a portal into the other side. Once they're fully grown, the demon will enter this world and
possess me."
"I'm so sorry. He told me you would just go in peace. I never thought one of you would find out what was going on."
"How long do I have?"
"I don't know. Not long. That's why Jessica and I have been watching the people with the seeds. We've been waiting for them to burst."
"Can you stop it?" I knew what her answer would be before I even asked, but I had to hear it anyway. If it meant bringing her daughter back, would she have stopped it even if she could?
"No. All I did was plant the seeds in the food. How they work is as much a mystery to me as you."
We stared at each other for a moment. I lifted my hands and felt their unnatural weight, and she flinched as though afraid I would strike her.
"Do you hate me?"
No. And it was true. I hated that this was happening. I was afraid, but I didn't hate her. I might have even done the same in her place. I can't hate you, because I need you.
"I told you, there's nothing I can do."
You can stay with me here and keep me company until it comes. You're a lucky girl, Jessica. Your mother loves you very much. I didn't even have enough energy to sit upright anymore. I slumped against the lady. It's easier for me to not know her name, and she wrapped her arms around me. I pulled out my phone and considered calling my family, but I didn't know how to make sense of my situation. Instead, I'm telling you my final update, which they'll find and come to understand. The lady held my hand as I rested against her, and together, we're waiting for oblivion to come.